So what about business income insurance? Hey, it's Kagan with Brightby.com, where we take the sting out of insurance searching. And if you like the sound of that, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. You've been searching for business income insurance and the search results are in. Let's be real. Business insurance coverage is the last thing on our minds, but it's something we still think about and sometimes even hope we have right. Hoping is pretty scary when it could crush our hard work and consistent grind. All it takes is a few seconds and everything changes for us. Let's be the next success story, not the I wish I would have story. I went straight to the source on this search and talked to an expert on Brightby.com, Rob Bowen with Patriotic Insurance Group. First though, let's drill down into the basics. What is business insurance and what does business insurance cover?
Business insurance, usually the first time a business owner is requesting for business insurance is from his landlord. They're looking for a general liability policy. The issue is the business policy has a lot more coverages that are a lot more important to the client than they are to the landlord. And that's what we do, is kind of drill down into those individual coverages and how they work and how they protect the ultimate policyholder. Two of the biggest things is business personal property, or what's called betterments and improvements. So if your landlord upgrades the space, I'll use a restaurant as an example, puts carpet in, does the new walls, they might have paid for it, but you have to insure it. And then business personal property is anything that's not attached to that structure. Tables, chairs, computers, anything like that. That's the important part of insurance, because if God forbid you have a fire or flood, the landlord's not taking care of that, you are, and people don't focus on that because again, they're back focusing on what the landlord is requiring. Second coverage, which I always preach, is called business income.
What is business income insurance and how can it save your business when you need it the most?
Business income, simply if your business cannot run, and there are elimination periods, there's time frames, but typically in most policies, the business income will now generate a revenue stream for you, so you are cash flow neutral, relatively cash flow neutral, as you basically, maybe you have to fix some stuff, maybe you have to dry out your restaurant, for example. And that, to me, is the most important part of these policies, because if you're down for 4 to 6 weeks and have no revenue coming into a business, you might be losing your employees, you might be going bankrupt. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. So it's very important that the client understands the business income. Good policies will have a time frame around it. Bad policies will have a dollar limit. And I prefer to have the time frame. Usually it's 1 year, and it's kind of as they need it. And obviously your books and records will be audited, so you know what the number is. But those are the two big parts of these policies that people need to focus on. The best example is a restaurant. The reason I use restaurants as my example is the employees tend to be relatively transient. You have quite a bit of churn in these employees. And if you have someone who's working at, let's say, $5 an hour, depending on your state, and is living on the tips, and the restaurant's closed, that person's typically going to leave and go work at another restaurant. So what you can do at that point, assuming you are reporting your tips in your revenue, I should do a wink, wink, nudge, nudge on that one. We will provide that revenue source to you as the policyholder, and that can be pushed out to your employees. So now with business income, you're hard down. We will fix everything in the restaurant. We're now paying your employees. So when you open up in 4, 6, 8 weeks, you now have your employees are still there. If you have a fire or a flood, and then all of a sudden you've got to hire 15 new people in your restaurant, you're kind of starting from scratch. So that's the best way to look at it from a restaurant, but it applies to any business. And it's important to keep, because your biggest expense is typically your payroll. And now we can provide funding for that. So you can keep the business going on a cash flow basis while you really are not working.
How much does business income insurance have to cost and how much do I actually need?
Business income, typically if you're dealing with a forms-based policy, which basically means there's a lot of other coverages within the policy as you pay for it, there's no extra cost to it. What you need to understand is there a dollar limit, which you can always put into the policy, or whether there's a time limit. So you have to understand, if you want 6 months, some policies, if you want an extra 6 months, or you want to increase it above what the form says, that will cost you, but that will be, usually the form is pretty close. The policies you have to be really concerned about in my market are the excess surplus policies that aren't forms based, they're more of a Chinese menu approach, and they'll have no coverage. So you need to add all these different coverages. I typically don't sell those unless I have to. And we have a process we go through. So typically I'm in the what's called the admitted market. So all of that coverage is in there as part of the policy endorsements. It's very hard with a new restaurant because they really are we're going off of their business plan. And that's really an estimate or a wild guess. But if you have a restaurant that's established, I just ask them, what kind of revenue do you bring in on a monthly basis? Obviously, restaurants can be seasonal, so we want to go with the highest. If they're a summer-based restaurant, we want to go with those months. So I ask them for the 12-month revenues, and I have them try to help me break it down by month. And then we look at the 3 months that are probably the highest, and we tend to multiply by 4. If we have to add additional business income coverage, it's very, very inexpensive. Very few people file claims in general. So the expense of the policy is more on the business income side, or more on the general liability side, because there's usually $1 million right there, where the business income's not going to be anywhere near that level. So that's the process I typically use. If it's a new startup, I'll tend to take their business plan and exaggerate it a little, because again, the cost is really not that much, and that's, to me, is the biggest part of these policies.
What you didn't know about business insurance is?
I think what people don't understand about business insurance is the additional endorsements that we kind of went through. People tend to be told by the landlord, I need a general liability policy. I need to be named as additional insured. So a client comes in and says, hey, I need a certificate of insurance. That's not how insurance works. You need a policy to create the certificate. But what I try to do is go through the different coverages. I mean, there's coverages in there for your sign, for your landscaping out front. I always joke there's coverage for fine arts, and most of these that is $250,000. Most people don't have $250,000 of fine art, but there are additional coverages that we'll go through line by line to let them know that there's a lot of little things that can go wrong. You could have to call the fire department to be charged. That will typically be covered. You might have to recharge your system in the back by the kitchen, the Ansel system. That will also be covered. So there's a lot of different coverages. So we go through and explain what each coverage is, how it works. Because at the end of the day, if you have a bad fire, that's bad. We can fix all that. But if your sign gets destroyed and it's $4,000 and your Ansel system has a leak and you got to fix it, things like that, they start running a couple $1,000s a month. That can put a big damper on your net income.
Now remember, we just talked about a few important business coverages, but there are a lot more that you need to consider when running your business. As you continue to grow your business, your insurance needs will change. And some other coverages to consider are commercial auto insurance, commercial umbrella liability insurance, and commercial crime insurance. You can find more about these different coverages on our channel. Take the expert's word for it. It's important to speak with a licensed insurance agent and expert on Brightby.com to find out what business income insurance is best for you. You can find more on Rob in the description below, and check out our channel for other helpful tips on business insurance, and end your search with Brightby.com today. Keep your business buzzing.